law is right and just and fair, and this law is not. The law itself is abusive. Even if it hasn't been abused further, then that means now's the exact right time to change it. Let's change it before it does get abused. If our current law enforcement community in Wyoming is doing an honorable job, well, that's great. But who's to say who's going to be behind the badge 10 years from now, 20 years from now? And so it's our job to protect future generations as much as our own generation. And that means fixing a bad law and changing it now.
Yeah, I know when Rand Paul was talking to people about some of these types of issues, he said to them, he said, I'm not saying that Obama is necessarily a bad man. What I'm saying is you don't want to have a legal system that requires on having good men in office to keep from having abuse. That's the whole reason that the founders like James Madison set up checks and balances. That's the whole reason we have the Bill of Rights. As you pointed out, these rights come from God, and we had them formally recognized in the Constitution so that the government would not take them away. And now they're ignoring that Constitution. As you pointed out, when the governor vetoed this, you said civil asset forfeiture violates the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th Amendments to the U.S. Constitution. I think you talked about the 5th. Talk about the other two. Talk about how it violates those amendments to the Constitution.
Well, between the 6th and 7th Amendments to the Constitution, it provides for somebody who cannot afford an attorney to have one appointed for them. And that's not the case at all. If a person wants an attorney in a civil case, they have to hire it themselves. And one of the scary things in Wyoming is that the median amount seized was around $2,000. And for $2,000, you can't hire an attorney and go to court and have it cost less than that. So it's just not practical. The other protection there is the right to a jury trial. And in civil matters and in amounts over $20, I believe, is what the Constitution says. And oftentimes these people don't even get to court. Our Attorney General, in front of our committee meeting last week, I asked him about the due process issue, and his response was, well, the Supreme Court has ruled that sending a notice to somebody in the mail that their assets are being seized is due process. To me, that's the opposite of due process. And I think just saying that a Supreme Court has decided something makes it right, I think that's a scary precedence to go down. I remember at one point in our country, the Supreme Court had ruled that black individuals were property and not people.
Yes.
And so if you're saying that just because the Supreme Court says something, it's right, well, then I think that there's a lot of decisions in the past that have been overturned that you don't want to agree with.
Absolutely. I don't need 9 politically appointed judges to interpret the Constitution for me. It's not like it's written in a foreign language. I can read it myself, and it's pretty clear. And we have to understand that these ideas are coming from Washington. I don't know that we're going to see a solution coming out of it in spite of senators like Rand Paul and Mike Lee. And, of course, they're joined. It's a bipartisan effort. There are some Democrat senators who have joined with them to stop this. This isn't just a Republican thing. Actually, interestingly enough, civil asset forfeiture began with Ronald Reagan as part of his war on drugs. We ought to recognize that, and we ought to correct that. But I wanted to talk to you about what's going on right now, because I think really the solutions are going to be coming from the states. And that's why I wanted to get a state legislator like you who understands and appreciates and the Constitution and obeys the Constitution, stands up for it. I think that's really our only hope. There's so much corruption in Washington that even if we have a handful of Democrat and Republican senators who want to stand up for our civil liberties, I'm still very skeptical that's going to happen. Let's talk about what's going on in Wyoming now. This was vetoed by the governor when it was passed, and then there were some Republicans who defected and so you couldn't override the veto at that point. Is this coming back in another form, this civil asset forfeiture legislation?
I can promise it will come back. And for me, the Senate choosing not to override the veto was the most frustrating part of the process. It passed the Senate with a vote of 26-3, and out of the 26 senators who voted for it originally, after the governor vetoed it, 20 of the 26 changed their vote and voted not to override his veto.
Wow.
And that was what was really hard to take and hard to swallow.
Wow. Political pressure definitely being brought to bear there. That reminds me of what happened here in Texas with the bill to stop the TSA. Stay with us. We're going to be right back with Representative Croker from Wyoming. We're talking about civil asset forfeiture, efforts to rein that in at the state level. We'll be right back.
Who has over 65 seed varieties of 34 different vegetables?
Down to Earth.
Who has over 63,000 seeds packaged to last 50 years?
Down to Earth.
Whose seeds can be frozen to maintain germination?
Down to Earth seeds. No hybrids, no GMOs, just proven old-time seed varieties grown all over the country by our grandparents. Our kids have the best variety and the largest quantities of vegetable seed for the best price. Get your food security now at downtoearthseeds.com or call 870-427-3039.
Last year, in the Nevada desert, one family took a stand for freedom. Numanna Food Storage was the first and only company to support the rights of the Bundys. While others stood down, Numanna took donations and provided storable foods to the men at Bunkerville. Founded by patriots who believe in liberty, Numanna Food Storage is GMO-free, great tasting, and easy to prepare. Food is freedom. Buy Numanna today at PowerPrepper.com. Numanna Food Storage you'll love to eat at PowerPrepper.com.
Normal blood pressure, naturally. How would that make you feel?
I'm Don from New Mexico. January of 2000, I had a heart attack. Then my real health began going downhill, and I had high blood pressure, high blood sugar, poor vision, and I really wasn't sleeping well. I was a mess, pretty much.
Don reports dramatic improvements with Heart and Body Extract.
I started taking Heart and Body Extract, and from within a few days, I started sleeping a lot better. My blood pressure normalized, my blood sugar normalized, and my sleep really did improve.
Experience these benefits and more when your body gets what it needs with the assistance of Heart and Body Extract. Order at hbextract.com or call 866-295-5305. That's hbextract.com or call 866-295-5305.
And folks, I did not expect this at all. By the 7th, 8th, and 9th day, I saw dramatic improvements from taking Heart and Body Extract.
Details at hbextract.com or call 866-295-5305 for Heart and Body Extract.
As if chlorine in our water weren't bad enough, now they're adding ammonia?
It's true. Some municipalities are now adding ammonia plus chlorine to your water supply. It's a disinfectant called chloramine. But with a trusted Big Berkey water filter, you can keep chloramine out of your water. New NSF EPA certified lab tests show EPA Berkey water filters remove chloramines, pharmaceuticals, BPA, pesticides, bacteria and viruses, all forms of fluoride, and much more. Big Berkey water filters are the original and most trusted on the market, the gold standard in water purification. And our filters last for years at less than 2 cents per gallon. Big Berkey, the one that's powerful enough to purify stagnant pond water. Get your Big Berkey today. Call 1-877-99-BERKEY or click BigBerkeyWaterFilters.com. That's 1-877-99-BERKEY. Big Berkey Water Filters, for the love of clean water.
The folks at My Patriot Supply get it. They know the world can be unpredictable, and there are some scary things happening right now. The only way we can make sure we maintain our independence, despite the situation, is to take control and get prepared. They've come up with a deal that will help you get prepared for anything. Right now, you can get a 4-week food supply for only $99. That's almost 50% off the online price. Call 800-274-3070 to claim yours while supplies last. Limit 2 per caller. This offer isn't available online, so take advantage of this opportunity to get prepared today. 800-274-3070 to get your 4-week food supply for the incredible price of only $99. Call 800-274-3070 right now. That's 800-274-3070 to claim yours while supplies last.
You've got it. This transmission is coming to you. All right, you are go.
Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, and we have joining us in this segment Representative Kendall Croker, a state representative in Wyoming. And, of course, we have him on because he is fighting for the rights of people in Wyoming to have due process, to have property rights. Civil asset forfeiture, as he was just explaining in the last segment, takes your property rights, takes your right to due process. As he pointed out, when it was passed by the legislature and then vetoed by the governor. He pointed out that it violates the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th Amendments of the Constitution. I want to go back to him and talk to him about what's next in Wyoming, because they're going to come back with another bill. Before I do, quickly, I want to point out that we have InfoWars Life Silver Bullet now at 50% off at InfoWarsLife.com. That'll save you $15 per bottle. It's 50% off, down from $29.95. That's a preparedness grade of silver. It's a powerful 30 parts per million. We've been sold out frequently with this. Right now we have it in stock. It's a good time to stock up for the year at 50% off. That's Silver Bullet, InfoWarsLife.com. Representative Croker, we were just talking before the break about how you said there were 26 individuals in the Senate, 26-3, I think, and all but 6 of them changed after the governor vetoed it, and so they were not able to override the veto. That reminds me of what happened here in Texas. We had a Representative David Simpson who put a bill forward to stop the TSA from molesting children and adults, and he would treat those types of molestations for what they were, sexual assault. And it was passed with a strong majority. I think it was even unanimous in one of the houses here in Texas. And then we had the lieutenant governor as well as the governor get involved, and they shut it down at the Senate level. We even had the government, the federal government, threatening to make Texas a no-fly zone. So there's a lot of political pressure, a lot of partisan pressure to toe this line. What do you make of that?
It's frustrating, and it's politics. Mm-hmm. But I think another thing that's frustrating about it is another case of us giving up our power in the legislative branch of government. I mean, if we're going to bow down to the governor and let him determine what we're going to pass or not and not override him, and we have the votes, well, why do we even meet as a legislature? Why don't we just give him a list of what he wants to pass and then say, okay, it's passed? I mean, I think our founders set up a system of a balance of power, you know, for a very good reason, and we need to remain strong as a legislature. And I mean, if it was right for the Senate to vote for that bill before the governor vetoed it, it should have been right for them to vote to override him.
Well, I can tell that you're someone who takes the Constitution far more seriously than they do being in part of a political club. I really salute you for that. I think that's a smart move, actually. Quite frankly, I think a lot of people are really fed up with politics as usual. They're really fed up with the Republicans and the Democrats who just go along and run roughshod over our rights so that they can toady up to the people in power. I really appreciate you standing up to that. Now, you said that the Wyoming legislature is going to offer another bill, you believe. Is that going to be not as strong as this bill? How is that going to be different, and why do you think that might be able to pass?
I think we'll be able to keep it as strong as we can. A couple issues that are the way Wyoming works. Our general session, we're done with our legislative session for the year. Now the committees will each meet 2 or 3 times during the interim to work on topics to bring back as committee-sponsored bills. And our Judiciary Committee is looking at the topic again. And I feel pretty confident that our committee is going to hold strong, and that if we come up with a bill, that it'll be just as strong and it will require a conviction. There might be a few changes that we can make here and there, you know, some small minor changes. For example, one thing that the prosecutors were upset about is our bill required a felony conviction before any asset forfeiture could take place. And they've said, well, what about in the case of a misdemeanor? Well, if it's a small amount of money, it might be appropriate to say for an amount of $1,000 or less, that's appropriate with a misdemeanor conviction. So there might be some small changes we can make in our bill. But to me, the important thing is having that conviction to make sure that you are convicted before the government forfeits your property. And that's one of the frustrating things. That's kind of a red herring talking point that's thrown out there by the governor when he says that crime should not pay. Well, I agree. And under our bill that he vetoed, crime wouldn't pay because it would still allow the government to forfeit funds from a drug crime if they were demonstrated that they came as profit from drug dealing. The difference is you have to convict the person and find him guilty, and then as part of the sentencing, it would allow the judge to forfeit those funds if they were direct profits from criminal activity.
And that's the problem, is that he's saying crime should not pay. They're determining that you're a criminal because they've taken away your presumption of innocence. That's very important. I'm sorry we're out of time, but thank you so much for joining us. We're going to be watching that very closely. And I know it took a lot of citizen action to get that passed in New Mexico. Over 5,000 people called the governor, told her to sign it. Thank you so much, Representative Kendall.